So last year's coaching carousel was the craziest I think I've ever seen. You had big name profile programs opening up. You had big name coaches leaving one good school to go to another. Obviously, you had the whole Kiffin saga there, going from Ole Miss, going to LSU. You had Florida come open. You had Penn State come open. You had Auburn come open. It was just everywhere. I mean, you had names like Mike Gundy, leaving, and then where are they going from there? It just one thing after another is insane. Not so much for the coaches getting fired, but I mean, as it really a lot of new opportunities for a lot of programs who have been down for a little bit. So it should be fun to see how um, it all works out. However, this year, probably with as much turnover there was last year, probably not a whole lot of turnover this year. However, there are some big key schools and coaches that we need to watch out for. There is no hot seat list that doesn't include Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell is pretty much a dead man walking. Um, I guess he has a chance if he turns things around, and not just turn things around, but really, really, have a wild season where it's you got to go pretty close to undefeated or close to it. 10-win season to really turn things around. You got to show some progress. Recruiting hasn't been that great. He hasn't really brought in a quarterback from the high school ranks. It's been recycling, you know, average quarterbacks, kind of a second chance you in a way of quarterbacks. So he really needs to get his stamp on the program. I really think he needs to go out and get a top tier quarterback. But the problem is are those players going to come when it's kind of a looming cloud of, well, Norvell is going to get fired. Last year everybody thought it might happen. They couldn't really afford to buy out. This year they still have a really, really high buyout on Norvell. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. How much money does Florida State have to after firing the coaches? Who can they afford to bring in? All that. It's going to be an interesting discussion. But maybe Norvell turns it around and surprises us all. But it's almost all said and done that it's going to be Norvell's going to be gone at Florida State, and then it's going to be interesting to see who they fill that position with. Another one, obviously, that's in a lot of hot seat talk about is Lincoln Riley at USC. I think he needs a little bit more time. I know he's had a lot of time there. He kind of made mistakes, corrected those mistakes, fixed the defense. They just kind of they get up to gear, but they're not quite getting to that full speed. And if they can turn things around to that full speed and get things going and assert a little bit of dominance, show that they're a top tier team in the Big Ten, there's a chance that definitely he can continue that. But if things go sideways this year, I think he's on a pretty short leash. That if things don't work out well, it's going to be definitely a hot job opening. I mean, they can literally pull from pretty much anywhere at USC. It's a really, really big job. South Carolina, things were looking very, very good for Shane Beamer just 2 seasons ago. They were on the brink of a college football playoff appearance. You can say what you want, whether you think they should have been in or not. I mean, they looked really good. You bring back Lenore Sellers. You have Dylan Stewart there. You have all these guys there. And then last year, they just kind of fell on their face. Things just didn't look right. Everything didn't, nothing really, things were, they couldn't really get it, out of park almost. It just didn't seem to click. They had moments where you thought, but just nothing ever really got there. And I think things are getting a little bit impatient. And especially this year with Sellers being back again, would probably be his last season. Dylan Stewart, you have these talented guys who have NFL potential, and you almost feel like they're kind of being wasted there. And does that fall back on the Beamer? Where does it fall? To me, it falls on the head coach. If your guys aren't developing, they're not getting better, they're regressing, whatever it may be. But if that job comes open, there's some interesting candidates there. So it should be interesting to see how that turns around. Not necessarily a hot seat coach, but Kirk Ferentz is another one at Iowa. He's been there since Iowa became a state, and I mean they've been the picture of consistency and the picture of Big Ten football. Honestly, always hard-nosed, dominant. They're not going to score a lot, but they're going to play sound defense, sound special teams. They're going to do just enough to win. you don't want to play Iowa. No one wants to play Iowa. They're going. They make you play their game, which is a slugfest, down the dirt, gritty football game, which is Big Ten football, obviously. I don't think he's getting fired, but if he decides he's gonna step aside or resign, be interesting to see what the market is there. He's been there so long; it's been a solid program under him. But without him, do you think Iowa would bring in a top tier coach? Do you think, or that's going to be an interesting question to see how that goes. Obviously, you always have the turnover factor from a team's going and taking other jobs, that kind of thing. So there's some ones in there that could. Maryland's definitely one. Maryland's kind of a sleeping giant. They have a really good recruiting bed there. They're kind of right in the middle of everything. Loxley, had something going there with Talia Tagovailoa. And it's just kind of sputtered out. It was like it was taken off and just didn't quite make it off the ground. And you kind of thought, hey, this team looks pretty good. The offense looks pretty good. And then it just didn't really pan out. So, we're going into, this is Loxley's going into his 9th season there. That's wild. And he's 37-49. So, under 500. I think if he doesn't get things going this year with Malik Washington at quarterback and all that, if he doesn't get things moving, progressing from the 4-8 last year, he'd definitely be he's definitely on a hot seat. And you look for him to kind of be a hot name, the program to be a hot name, but depends on what else is out there. If USC is out there, if Florida State's out there, where does it rank among that? Cincinnati is another one. Satterfield hasn't. He's been very subpar. 15-22 in 3 seasons. Had a good season last year. It was like 7-6, so it's not that great. And that was with Sorsby and all that going on. And now you have investigation into the Cincinnati program from the betting that was going on with Sorsby. So it's just a lot going against them. They lose a lot. They bring in J.C. French from Georgia Southern. Just see how this year goes, but it's definitely a season that if it starts going off the rails, might be quick to see him gone. Dave Aranda's another one. He's going into his through 6 seasons, he's 36-37, just right around average. 5-7. They're just kind of a middling program. They bring in DJ Lagway, who apparently his task in college football is to try to save the jobs of every head coach he has to play with. Not a good spot for him. It's not a great team. They have some pieces, but are you going to try to get DJ Lagway to do too much? We saw last year at Florida him trying to do too much and things not working out well. When he's comfortable and has the pieces there, he can get things humming. But when he's trying to do too much, it's breaking down. But maybe he does better. Maybe Aranda can save his job there. But a lot has to be done there. It's a tough situation overall. But overall, it's not that many coaching candidates. There are not that many teams that you're watching for. There was so much turnover last year. I'm going to do a video shortly of upcoming lower level coaches who may be up for some of these spots, along with some coordinators. We'll get into that with some coaching carousel talk. But who do you think? Is there anybody else I missed? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. Get the conversation there, and just let me know. Who do you think's going to be fired? Who would you like to replace said coach? And if anybody I missed, let me know who you think might be on the hot seat this year. But again, like and subscribe. Hit me in the comments, and get ready for the next video.